Hello, John Bloodworth, Gentleman Crafter here, and over the last few weeks, in fact quite a few weeks, I have been developing a tool that will help you create clear, efficient cutting instructions for your paper and cardstock based on the type of cardstock you've got and also the sizes that you want to cut. Now, rather than me waffle on to this video camera, I'm probably easier just getting straight on and taking a look. Now, the first thing I'll say is it's free to use, so don't worry about subscriptions or any of that. No accounts to sign up for or any of that either. You'll find the tool at the website address papercuttingplanner.netlify.app. And when you first load it, it will look something like this. So we've got the title at the top, and then we've got the first card activated, where you're going to select the units that you normally work in. Now, these will probably be likely the ones that are printed on your guillotine or paper trimmer. You can choose whichever you want. For this example, I'm going to choose metric. But I'll quickly run through later on an example using imperial because there's a couple of things that I'd like to point out. Now, once you've selected the units, you'll be asked for the paper size that you're working with or cutting from. We've got a variety of defaults here, but you can also choose custom. So if you're using up larger scraps, you can type in the exact size. They do have to be a rectangle. Sadly, we can't do triangles at the moment. But you can type in your exact size of the piece of paper you're working with and then take it from there. Now, this size here, 304.8 millimeters square, is actually 12 by 12 cardstock. I know sometimes we kind of say 300 millimeters, but it is precisely 304.8. So I'll go for 12 by 12. If you're working in imperial, this will say 12 by 12. I'll show you that later. Once you've selected the paper size, you'll be asked how many sheets of that size you have available. Now, this is asking specifically about the same type of paper. So if you've got textured white cardstock that you're cutting, how many of those do you have available? Not how many you have in your whole entire collection. Now, if you're not sure how many sheets you're going to need for this project, just choose unlimited and the system will tell you later how many sheets you do need. So you can go and count what you've got, and if you don't have enough, you can buy some more. If you only have a specific amount to work with and you are unable to get any more of that, then choose limited and tell the system how many sheets you've got, and it will tell you if what you're asking it to cut will work. I'm going to choose unlimited for now. Now, the paper type is going to ask you whether it's plain, so no design to worry about, whether it's patterned, non-directional. This is where your pattern is just scattered all over the place, and whichever way you rotate the card or paper, it doesn't matter. Or you've got a directional pattern here. That's where it's got a clear direction, either top to bottom or left to right. If you choose plain, then basically you can rotate the card, or the system can rotate the card to fit and get best use of your paper. If you've got non-rotational, you can choose whether to turn rotation on or off. And if you've got directional, it will ask you if the design runs up or down the sheet or across the sheet. And it will then disable the rotate function on the pieces to cut later because you want them to cut in a very particular way. Anyway, I'm just going to choose plain cardstock for this one. Then it's going to ask you what pieces you want to cut. Now remember, you're cutting from the same sheet each time. In later versions, I'm hoping to mix and match this so that you can choose different things and create a whole project set of cutting instructions from one pass. But for now, we're just cutting from the plain cardstock. And how many pieces do we want to cut? So let's just put some random numbers in here. So I'll have 100 millimeters square and I'll have 3 of those. Add another piece. We can go for 75 by 150, so a rectangle. I'll have 2 of those, please. And then let's just put a smaller thing in. So 50 by 200, and then 1 of those. Now, as you saw, little messages come up to guide you through this whole process. So it is holding your hand as we go. And then the final thing that we do is click here where it says create cutting plan. And then on screen here, what it will do is it will tell you how many sheets you need to get all of the pieces you want, which is 6, and then how much of that cardstock will be left over. It's just a fun figure. Don't worry about it too much, but hopefully it's going to save you more paper than it actually cuts, if that makes any sense. Anyway, the instructions are set out quite clearly from first cut to last cut, and along the way, in italics, it will also guide you and tell you what you should have after you've made each cut. So it will start at position 1 with your first cut. Place one edge of the sheet against the cutting guide. Now this is the cutting guide that runs across your guillotine or trimmer, perpendicular to the cutting line. So if I grab the paper trimmer here, so that's the cutting line that runs up and down. The guide that you're positioning it against is the one that's along the top here. So every cut you make will be measured against these markings here. And that's the same whether you've got one of those that slide up and down, or, sorry, I should have planned this in advance, or whether you've got a big choppy one. So your guillotine blade runs down here, your paper will be aligned with the top guide, the guide that runs across the top there. Okay, hope that makes sense. So it'll say align the sheet at the 75mm mark on your guillotine or trimmer and cut. And then when you've cut that, you should have one piece this size and one piece this size. Then it will say place the short edge of the remaining piece, that's this piece here. You can see those dimensions match up against the cutting guide, again, running along the top. And align it with the 15mm mark on your trimmer or guillotine and cut. After this cut, you should have blah, 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 and it keeps going on and on and on. But here's a clever thing. If you are cutting multiple pieces from one strip or section of that paper, it will start indenting. So it will kind of cascade. So it helps you understand, and it's using the same exact dimensions each time. So remember here, 75 by 304.8. This was the first piece that we cut. So it's asking you to take that piece, align the strip at the 150mm mark, repeat until you have cut 2 cuts at 150mm mark. So after these, you'll have 2 of those and 1 of those. So at the end, a reminder, it gives you the dimensions you wanted, how many pieces you wanted, and of course, a reminder that any leftover paper or card can go back in your stash for another project. Now, you do have the option to print, so you can print it straight out of your printer if you're not going to see it on screen. Of course, you can if you're using a tablet or something. Just read it off the screen. But printing it will give you the option to mark things off as you're working. Maybe that'll help. Or you can save it as a PDF. So if you do the project over and over and over and over again in the future, you can just refer back to the printed thing without having to come back to the tool. Now that's basically it. It's really, really simple. And I've already heard feedback from people that are using it and have found it very, very useful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments what you think about this and what you think some adaptations or changes or updates or improvements should be for the future. In the meantime, if you do want to support this tool, then you can support me through Ko-fi or buy me a coffee. There are links at the bottom after the page is generated. It's not compulsory, it's just to help me support the ongoing development of the tool, the hosting costs and all of that rubbish. Or just to fuel me with coffee while I'm coding away. Anyway, I hope you'll find this useful, and let me just give you a quick run through of imperial, because there's some very slight differences. So if you primarily work in inches, whether you're in the US or other regions that use the imperial system, choose imperial. Then you've got standard sizes here, so US letter 12 by 12, 8 by 8, 6 by 6, and custom. Let's go for 12 by 12. Let's say limited this time, and let's say 2. Where's my keyboard? There it is. Paper type. Let's go for directional. Now you can see, because I made a change here, it's also disabled the cards that were at the end, because those are now no longer relevant. Design runs up the sheet. They've come back but it says this piece doesn't fit on the sheet or the orientation. That's because it's taken the original numeric values and turned them into inches, but without converting them. Maybe I should change that in the future. So what we would do is we can either just delete the last two and then just adjust this. So let's say 5 inches by 7 inches. I'll have 3 of those. Rotate is disabled because I'm using a directional pattern. Let's have a couple of small squares. 2 and 1 more. Let's have a long strip. So let's say 8 inches by 1 inch. Set that to 1. And then create cutting plan. And again, it gives us a very similar rundown, but obviously with inches as the main focus. Now in these fields, you can use fractions, so you can type them as you normally would. And I think the step value is 1/8 of an inch, so it will come out with measurements that you can line up and cut on your guillotine and trimmer, because they don't often go below 1/8 of an inch. You might get some that do 1/16, but I tried to keep it manageable. So anyway, that's it for this video. As I say, I hope you find this tool useful and will consider heading over and using it and supporting it and telling your friends about it. In the meantime, if you've any suggestions for other creative paper apps that I could make, please feel free to let me know in the comments below the video. Thanks for watching this one, and I will see you next time with maybe another tool.